Hi, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be connecting with you for our monthly update call on the digital framework. For any of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Jamie Boyd, and I work in the Ministry of Citizen Services in the Office of the Chief Information Officer. It's a real pleasure today to get to provide a bit of an update on all things digital, hopefully, in the government of BC. And we also have a very special guest joining us today, the Ministry CIO responsible for the natural resource sector, Denise who's going to be having a bit of a conversation with us around the importance of digital change from the perspective of natural resources. Before we get into this, we will be going through a little bit of an update on the digital framework. I will provide a bit of a reminder that this call is being recorded. We are trying to model best practices in open government, and so we are planning to disseminate this call, so just be aware of that. We will also be monitoring Slido, so if you have any questions or comments as we go, please feel free to put those questions in there, and then go ahead and you can upvote comments and questions from colleagues across government. So I'll get started right away. I know that we've been doing these monthly calls for a little while now, so a lot of this content may be old hat, but it's worth re-emphasizing anyway. Digital government is really about using modern technology as well as a culture and governance and practices that come with modern technology to deliver great services to British Columbians. That's what we're really trying to do here. And this has never been so important as in the age of COVID. I think many of the digital teams across government have been enjoying unprecedented popularity as many of our digital services gain a lot of traction, particularly with social distancing. Again, as a reminder, we did launch our digital framework about a year ago now, and we had a number of different pillars in there. So we had our pillar around services to citizens, to British Columbians, making sure that we are, to the extent possible, taking great care of data and information, adopting data standards, trying to promote interoperability, becoming digital inside, so using modern tools like the tools that we're using right now for this conversation, and being connected outside, so partnering with the communities that we serve. We identified a number of priority actions within the digital framework, and we've been making some good progress. And in fact, we have just decided that we're going to take stock of the digital framework, the progress that we've made to date, see where we landed with the progress against the alpha of the digital framework, and see if there might be opportunities now to pivot towards a beta. So I'll provide a quick update on the priority actions that we identified for movement right away. So we talked a lot about trying to modernize funding for digital services. Really what we were trying to do is modernize the way that we fund technology, accelerate the speed with which we get the projects off the ground, and try to really maximize return on investment. So good news here, our colleagues across government have been very supportive of the work coming out of the Digital Investment Office here in the Office of the CIO. And we did develop a preliminary digital investment action plan with priority actions. One of those actions was to establish a new digital support team. So we have the first member of that team who is now in place, and we're starting to look at opportunities to really sort of sharpen our pencils in the extent to which we do those technical reviews and support our friends and colleagues across government in delivering great digital services. Next steps, we'll be looking to further refine that action plan, again with input hopefully from folks across government, and to the extent possible, we'll be looking to improve the processes that we use to support digital investment, particularly with the Digital Investment Board, with Treasury Board, and then try to improve some of our communications around those processes. We recognize that it isn't always easy to get those projects funded, and we'd like to do better going forward. The next area of priority action was around our policy framework for digital. So here, we had committed to creating an updated digital policy framework, starting with Chapter 12 of the Core Policy and Procedures Manual, so our mandatory policy suite. Good news, I think I mentioned last month that we had completed our draft of Chapter 12. We've made some more progress since then, and so we are looking to update or create new policy instruments that are sort of children of Chapter 12. So Chapter 12 is of course, that direction around information management and information technology, and it does create a number of authorities and responsibilities. One of the areas that we're looking to move is on digital policy, and we've got an initial focus on artificial intelligence. We were also looking to make quite a bit of progress on data. So trying to have sort of more enterprise approaches to integrated data standards, that sort of thing. Next steps, we are looking to formalize the new Chapter 12. This is, of course, a Treasury Board decision, so we'll wait for that to happen, hopefully in the coming months. We've also developed the new Managing Government and Information Policy, so we'll need to develop a bit of an implementation plan. And we'll be looking at scope for further progress to really clean up and modernize our whole suite of digital policy instruments, including through a tech code of practice, through data management policy, and that sort of thing. So work is going relatively well there, so good news. Another area that we had prioritized for quick action was around modern tools. I think I discussed last month that we've seen a lot of really good progress on this front, accelerated in no small part by remote work and the imperative of COVID-19. Here, the objective was really to provide clear direction on the use of modern tools and infrastructure, including cloud. In addition to the individual tools that we've been supporting across government, we have made some progress on our hosting and application development strategy. So for those of you who are perhaps less familiar with this, we had committed to developing a framework that was going to provide a blueprint for the future of IT in government and really help inform the kinds of approaches we would be promoting for hosting as well as for application development. So we have a strategy document. If you're looking for some, riveting reading, it is 27 pages long, I believe. But there's some great principles in there that I would really encourage any digital team to take a look at. This was developed in collaboration with partners across government, and we were really appreciative of getting really excellent input, not just from within government, but also, we posted some of the content on GitHub and got really great input from our vendor community and from partners in the broader ecosystem. We've also launched work to continue moving forward on that framework. So we've started doing our application portfolio summary across government. We manage about 1,600 apps. Our partners and friends in ministries have a fairly robust portfolio that we're collectively managing. And so we'd like to do some analysis around those 1,600 apps. And on the basis of that, we'll be developing playbooks for modern application development. And many of our ministry CIO partners have indicated that there's particular interest in developing guidance around CRMs, but we have a few other playbooks that we're working on also. So next steps for tools in general, we will be looking to establish a process for adopting and deploying collaboration and productivity tools. There's going to be a lot of ongoing work around enterprise licensing for some of these tools. We'll also be looking to advance analysis for procurement of cloud compute and storage. So many of you would know that we did change our legislative framework last fall. So there's lots of ongoing work through the cloud pathfinding team to further accelerate those efforts. And we're going to be launching an updated version of digital.gov. So that's our one-stop shop for all things going on in digital. And we've got a great Agile team working out of the lab to move that forward. The last update that I wanted to provide was around platform tools. So this one is around providing platform products and services, including common components and a DevOps platform. So recent progress. We have stabilized the DevOps platform and improved the availability. So we discussed this a little bit last month. In light of COVID-19, we have been doing a lot of work to prioritize those priority projects and onboard them onto the new platform. We are looking at also standing up a new instance for the OpenShift environment and provide training as needed. and essentially continue to scale the work to the extent possible. In terms of next steps, we are looking to further mature the platform offering, as well as leverage some of the engagement work that we've been doing, looking at talent management, decision making, that sort of thing. And as with all these things, this ties into our need for sustainable resourcing. So those are the big updates. Hopefully that wasn't too techy or boring or whatever. I know that a lot of this sounds like plumbing work, but it really is critical for ensuring that we have the resourcing, and I think the kind of approach that we need to be successful in delivering on the opportunity of digital change. So now we're going to pivot. This is where the fun part starts. We get to hear about somebody who's in the trenches of delivering digital services to British Columbians. I am so pleased to be joined today by Denise, who has been leading a lot of this work across government, and particularly in the natural resources sector, for a number of years. So thank you for joining us, Denise.
That's my pleasure. I had to get off mute.
So just before, I've got a few questions for you, but before we get in there, could I ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your mandate, your portfolio, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, you bet. So it's Denise Rossender. I'm the ADM and CIO for the 5 natural resource ministries. So all things technology, information management for those 5 ministries. So it's a pretty broad portfolio, everything from the operations to the development and delivery of solutions to investment governance, all of those kinds of things. Another added piece, which most people might not know, we are also responsible for the radio network for the province. So, handheld radios and those radios that go in the hands of the field workers, we're responsible for those radios and the network itself, all the radio towers. There's over 300 across the province. So it's a unique piece of our business, but very much an important piece of our business from a safety perspective for the province workers.
No kidding. Wow, no pressure, hey? That's a lot of responsibility. So obviously, across government, I think many of us have been seized by the opportunities of digital. I'd be really keen to hear from your perspective, why is the digital framework important? How have you been experiencing digital change? Really, what are your digital priorities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot packed into that question. I guess in my mind, the digital framework's important because it focuses on giving us all a focused approach on becoming a digital government. And it's the bridge really between enabling technology and new ways of delivering on government's business. What our citizens and partners expect, and it reflects the ongoing evolution of our culture in government and how the public wants to engage with government. It's that the citizens expect to be able to interact with us as government in the same way they do most of their things, right? All of the rest of their lives is done in a digital way, and they, want to be able to receive and pay for government services in the same way that they bank and shop online. Government is supposed to be a reflection of the will of the people, and our job is to make sure we're capturing that, and it's critical to our success and our relevance to be able to deliver in a digital way. It makes me think of my days back in Service BC, and I probably should just give a shout out to the Service BC staff. They're fantastic and dedicated people who deliver direct services to citizens and businesses every single day. And when I worked there, I remember thinking, gosh, government does such a great job on the front line and with the telephone service, but we seem to be missing that third leg of a 3-legged stool, the digital aspect of our service delivery. Now, that's where the ministries outside of Service BC come in, of course. And don't get me wrong, we've been doing digital for a long time, and we have a lot of digital services, but we just don't offer all our services in that mode. And I guess from my perspective, that's why the digital framework is important. We need to be able to commit to delivering digital services and do it in a mindful and deliberate way that's consistent, predictable, it's got good design, it's easy to use, it meets the needs. So, and I think from where I sit, the digital framework, it recognizes the importance of accessible and reliable data, which we know is key to the work that we're doing. Certainly the partnership with that I have with the natural resource ministries, every aspect of the natural resource business is centered around data. If you think about data for decision making, data for flood and fire response or flood and fire prevention, data for climate change, preparedness and adaptation, it just goes on, the importance of data. So, with the digital framework and the fact that we have limited resources, both funding and people, we need to be able to understand how to work better across government in order to achieve on what we need to achieve. So, I really want to stress the fact that, we are one government and, the people we serve don't really care what ministry we work in or what unit we work in. We really just need to be able to work in a way that demonstrates partnership in order to actually deliver on this digital government. So in my mind, that digital framework is the common framework that allows us all to follow so we deliver consistent and user-focused digital services. Bit of a long rant.
No, that's beautiful. That's music to my ears. It's so encouraging to hear that focus on putting citizens first. And, I couldn't agree more with the importance of taking that sort of integrated government-wide approach. But obviously this is easier to say than to do. And, recognizing that there has been a lot of work across government, I'm going to push you to try to be a little bit granular here. So what have we done? What are the success cases in digital change in your portfolio?
Right. And, I guess the reality is there's been tons of success. I think I'll focus just on the recent years. And I think firstly and probably the most fundamental change that I've seen is how we're delivering IT services. So when we talk about Agile and DevOps, that has been a significant transformation. It's for us in my division, it's been a 4-year journey to create an approach and develop the skills so that we can deliver digital solutions that are outcomes and value focused and that have metrics. We were able to demonstrate the value of our investment in a team-based approach to digital transformation through this last 4 months with the COVID-related work. We had the capabilities and the tools in place so that we could quickly pivot our teams to respond to COVID. A couple examples is we had a program that needed to get stood up for dormant well sites. And so this was funding that was coming through from the feds, and there wasn't an existing program. And so we were able to pivot an Agile team that was familiar with the Ministry of Energy, Mines, Petroleum Resources, their business, and we're actually able to reuse code and several of our common services that we'd already built to be able to launch this new program to support oil and gas industry within 2 weeks. Like, that is just mind-boggling, really. But it really was because we had the tools and the people in place. Another example, really at the beginning of all of this, we had the ability to stand up a silviculture operations app, basically, so that they could start tree planting. It was really so that the silviculture operators could set up their work camps in compliance with the provincial health order. And we did that within 5 days. We reused code that had been developed by Ministry of Health, so Corey Barclay's crew, and we were able to reuse that code and stand this thing up in 5 days so that they could operate and not lose all the trees, right, all the baby trees. So then after that, we modified that system to be able to accommodate other industrial camp operators. So it really was the way we're working, like how we're delivering these services, that has really been the big transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if I could share just another observation, these teams that are working on these solutions, like they were putting in long hours, but they were energized, right? Because they were seeing value in what they were delivering and they were able to deliver it quickly. So I strongly believe that the way we're delivering these services creates this, beautiful connection between alignment and autonomy. People are really clear, the teams are really clear on what they need to deliver, and they have a high degree of autonomy to get things done. So I think those two things combined are really demonstrating folks who want to work in this environment, and they're really feeling the success. We saw some really good evidence of this with our West scores for our Agile teams. It really just validated for me the fact that this is the right thing to be doing, and we're seeing the benefits.
This is so great. I'm reminded of, I think it was the first time that I met you. I came over to your office and there was this sort of open space. You're like, this is where the Agile teams are going to go. And it was like, this is just an empty office. And it was like, no, but the Agile Manifesto is on the wall. There's hope. So it sounds like that's been going well, hey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And, Agile isn't the be all and end all. And I think what the thing is we can learn a lot from the way, the Agile sort of way of working, right? Not everything we do is Agile, and there's some great energy and great success outside of the Agile space. But I think the important thing is to look at what's really underneath all of that, right? It's this alignment and autonomy. It's the seeing results quickly, not, working for years and years and years and years and never getting anywhere, right? So you really have to look at the things that make up what's making it successful, not just the label. And I think we can all benefit from that if we really dig a little bit into it.
Absolutely. And I mean, just the timelines that you were describing with launching that silviculture app, like I've never heard of government launching new services in 5 days. So it's just so impressive. So congratulations on that. So what's next? What's on your backlog? It's obvious that there's momentum building. It sounds like you've got some great teams that are supporting the vision. What's coming next?
Yeah. Well, there's no end of work. I think what I'll say first is that all of our work in this space has been a product of partnership with our natural resource ministries. So as I've mentioned, we support all 5. So we only bring half of the conversation. They bring the other half. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have the business working side by side with the tech. Right. And that said, given how much our world has changed over the last 4 months, and then, keeping mindful of the expectations, the evolving needs and expectations of citizens and businesses, there are some significant opportunities that are there, right, sort of at our fingertips. I guess the other thing I'll add is that, those of us who kind of self-identify as early adopters or risk takers or innovators sometimes feel alone when we're trying to promote new ways of doing things. But, in a period of significant upheaval and change, the engagement with a bigger audience happens. And so these conversations that we've been having are, expanding. And we're seeing that this has been a big trigger for a lot of receptivity to different ways of doing things. So some businesses that we would normally have conversations where there may be a bit more traditional are much more open to and really looking forward to something different in how they deliver their services, because they're really having to look at their business flow and their expectations of their stakeholders, and they have to think about doing business in a different way. So, and I guess, the one thing that COVID has probably taught all of us is that the ability to work and do business in a remote manner is extremely valuable. So, those of us in Victoria or other urban centers have not always felt that challenge of being disconnected. Now I think we can all relate and have a greater appreciation for what it means to not be in the same boardroom or same office space. So in my mind, digital, even more than ever in all that it means, right? Digital service, digital information, data, remote work, it's important, and it's even more important. And I think people are realizing that digital can support access to service, access to information, access to data, access to work. And so, in my mind, digital has kind of almost finally arrived and been seen by the masses as being essential. So with all that, one of the conversations we've been having over the last number of months with our program areas is about developing a digital strategy. So with each of our ministries, really trying to look at the future of the business and really the art of the possible. So what can technology do to support that future view of the business. Obviously, we have to layer on the COVID experience because that has really accelerated the need for this, I would say. But again, the purpose of these digital strategies is to figure out what are the capabilities that we need and how can tech support that so that we can invest in the future in a very proactive way, so that we can be ready to respond when the next thing hits us. So our digital strategies, the purpose of those is they will set the vision, they'll set the new priorities, and then we will iteratively deliver on them. So as I said before, we'll bring the tech, but we need to understand the new priorities of our program areas, and then that's what our plan will be moving forward. But one thing I do know is how we deliver will be in a very iterative, agile way.
That's fantastic. I'm looking at the time, and I think it's time to pivot over to some questions. So if anybody has questions that you'd like to pose to Denise, please feel free to put them in on Slido. There is one that has come in, and I've got a question. So one of my questions is, do you have any advice for other teams across government? And I'll also ask you one of the questions from Slido, and you can decide which one you want to answer. What is the importance of digital for climate adaptation strategies? Is there any connection in your mind there? So over to you.
So I'm not the expert in climate, and I would do a shout out to my colleague, Jeremy Hewitt. He is the all things climate in my mind. But one of the things that I see, and we did see, because we have an Agile team that is focused on the climate file, is information. Access to data and having it available in a way that allows us to understand what the impacts are and be able to make informed statements even about climate. So in my mind, the big thing that we really need to, and I kind of said this sort of at the beginning, is the access to information and the access to data is really critical in all of our files, but very fundamentally on the climate file. But that's as far as I'll speak on climate because I am not the expert. But to pick up on your other question, Jamie, in terms of advice, I always love to give advice. I think since you asked, in terms of this sort of digital transformation, digital government, it's a journey. I mentioned we've been on it for 4 years, and the most important thing, the most important step is that you start, and you start small. You iterate. There's lots of groups in government that have already done a fair amount of work in this space or already along the journey, and you can learn from them. So don't start without talking. People are very happy to share what we've learned, and so reach out if you're interested. So start and ask questions. And I think another important thing is stay focused on solving business problems. Work closely with the business, understand what the business problem is, and solve those problems. The tools and processes, they all kind of follow and they sort themselves out. Look for people who are interested. There's tons of people in business areas and IT shops across government who are very passionate about this. Find them and empower them. This alignment and autonomy, you get great results when people feel empowered. And as I mentioned, starting small and incrementing, that's critical. But partnerships and collaboration, that's another theme for me. We've had great success partnering with our business areas and partnering with the OCIO. You can't do it alone, and these partnerships are what lead to success, right? We've been sharing resources and sharing skills and all of these kind of sharing experiences. So don't do it alone, partner. And then I guess, the other thing I think is super important is investing in internal capacity. We've hired a lot of people with skills that we previously outsourced. There's talented people with great skills, great ideas that want to work for government. We still use consultants. We supplement with consultants. But in my mind, you can't buy digital transformation. You must do it, you must experience it, and you must lead it. So I think I'll leave it there.
Oh, that was very inspiring. So thank you so much for your words of wisdom, and of course for all of the leadership that's coming out of the natural resource sector, both from you and the teams that you're leading. We really, really appreciate all the commitment and the leadership across government. I'll leave it there. I see from Slido that there are lots of questions for me. It looks like folks have, lots of areas of interest. So I think what we're going to do in the interest of time is follow up on at work with responses to those questions. So thank you everybody very much for your interest, for keeping us honest and making sure that we stay on our toes. Appreciate that. We'll also be issuing a survey, which we would really love for you to complete. It'll help us improve these monthly calls. We heard loud and clear that people like the dialogue, so we're doing more of that. So please do complete the survey. And on behalf of all of us who are working so hard on digital, thank you very much for participating in this and for your leadership. And thank you, Denise, for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.